There's a little but. And here we are for a roundtable episode. I am very excited about this. We don't do these often enough, in my opinion. But on the other hand, it's good for people to be able to get out into their lives, try some stuff out, feel a little unbalanced, come back to a moment of clarity, and then they can come back here and share their tales of adventure, as it were. So here we are for a roundtable episode. I'm going to pass it over to Andrew here, and I'm going to do something quickly, and then we're going to kick it off.
Awesome. Yeah, excited for this. For those who are tuning in live or after the fact, if you ever do want to be on one of these, you just have to join Patreon. Anyone on tier 2 or tier 3 can join these every 2 weeks at Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday, and chat, be on a podcast, be on a public podcast that gets listened to by a bunch of people, bunch of cool people. So it's a fun opportunity to be able to connect with each other and share thoughts. And, we get to do it in the groups, but it's always a blast to have it on a full episode, a public episode like this. So I appreciate everyone who is here, and excited to see where this conversation goes. If anyone has anything they'd like to bring up, feel free. A story, a thought, an insight. Otherwise, I can get into some stuff that I was getting into at the end of our Instagram. Jay, good to see you, man.
Hey, that worked. Raising a hand. Good to see you too. How's everybody doing today?
Doing great.
Good. I wanted to talk about the experience that I had this morning. I've been going through a time of no insights, or at least nothing that I could generally tell, like nothing kind of original was coming up, so I'm like, oh, I'm just kind of dead, but not dead, but just not really coming up with anything new. And that's okay. I was in a kind of a settling moment, and you kind of get into that moment. And I got to a point where I'm kind of sort of tired of settling, or tired of even wanting to have the moment be anything any different than what it is, or have even wanting to have any insight at all, was like kind of a thing that came to me from that. And as soon as I let that go, like it wasn't like immediate, but they just started flooding. I'm like vacuuming the house, and I'm like, you know what? And a lot of the insights that I had were related to the episode that y'all had recently with Daisy, which was amazing, by the way. That was a phenomenal episode. And a lot of the insights were actually related to that, even though I hadn't watched the episode yet. So I watched that episode this afternoon. I'm like, holy shit. Like, holy shit, all the, and it's stuff that we've been, like, you all have been talking about for a long time since I've been listening. Basically, it's things that I've heard over and over and over again. But until you can really like put the puzzle pieces together, sometimes it's kind of like cursory, it's kind of like there, like, yeah, I get it. I understand, but I didn't really, and it's not until that moment where I like really got it that I was like, holy shit, like a big one that I had today was just the responsibility of the moment. Basically, that anything that I can think of about myself is a judgment, whether it's good or bad, or anywhere in between. Any kind of a thought at all that I have about myself is automatically in a judgment state. And I can't fully live in the moment truly if I'm judging myself in any kind of a way. And Andrew, you say this a lot. Like, you had a video recently where you're like, I don't even know what's going on. And that was kind of like the gist of the video. Like, I don't know what's going on. And that's really the realization that I come to, is that I don't ever like have to know what's going on. I can just kind of just be, and I don't have to have a judgment. And the discernment from when it's a judgment or when it's just a realization of something happening is like the key to unlocking the right now. You know what I mean? Because then I won't be putting up clouds or veils, or I won't be, clouding my present moment with the opinions of what I think right now. And so that realization right there can translate to just about anything, just about anything. And it's not even just the awareness versus the observer, observer of the thing observed kind of relationship. It seems to be a little bit like more than that. Even it's not like just being observant of the thoughts. It's kind of like observant of the observation of the thought. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, the shit just really, and it's not even that complicated really, but just to be able to relax into the moment, really. And it was just kind of like that realization that I just can. It's like I like almost gave myself the okay to just fucking relax. It was pretty cool. So that was a neat moment. So I just want to bring that up to start the day. It was good stuff.
Fantastic way to start the day, in my opinion, because you can't know what's going on because you start to say what's going on. It's like that's all presumptive based on this trajectory. Then, like, you can't know what's going on ever because that would mean that what's to come, what's next. That what happened is what you thought happened, that your singular perspective of the situation that you were in, that you're in now, that you're going to, is objectively true, and that the next thing that's going to happen. Because in order to know what's going on, it has to be relative to something, right? And without that ability to have the relativity, you can't. So it's not even that we surrender to not knowing what's going on. It's the recognition that you can't know what's going on without making a massive assumption that not only what's happening, but that your individual perspective is the ultimate truth. That the way that you see things is correct. You can never know those things. In regards to the insights and the desire for insights. I know you were able to surrender that, but even the idea that a lack of insights means something about you isn't even close to that, because the ultimate insight is you. And the idea that you're garnering more insight, or getting to more insight, or that you should be having more insight, necessitates a conceptual idea that's having more insights, that's achieving or understanding more things. And there has to be a conceptual idea in order for there to be something that is gaining anything, or is understanding anything more and more clearly or completely. And it's that illusion that you're something getting anything that's the ultimate insight to be had. And so even the idea of having insights, as opposed to just, I don't know, I was going to say being insights, but I don't even know if that's necessarily it. Recognizing something here and now, or letting go of the idea that there is anything else that you're turning into, any degree of a journey that you're becoming something other than just what you are right now. Like this being it, like this being the all and everything of you right here and right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because insights can become insights are really interesting in that what they're really doing is well, it's exactly what the word is saying. It's providing another layer of sight, another layer of recognition of what it is that you're dealing with. And with that, your behavior changes, your decisions change, the way you perceive yourself in the world changes. And it's so very interesting and tempting to look for the insights, not recognizing that it means you are leaving a part of yourself behind. Right. And so while at first the insights are super important, especially if you find yourself in the pit, you're just like, I'm good leaving that person behind. In which case, dig at it for sure. But after a certain point, it is about accepting where you are and making the most of it, because you've already got the knack of changing. You can almost not stop seeing insights after a certain point. Even just relaxing and going, I don't really need to see insights. You're like, oh my God, that's a good insight. And all of a sudden you're back on the road again. So it actually becomes a skill in itself to stop looking for that insight, to actually take the lesson that the insight's always showing you, which is just to arrive, just to be where you are. Right. And there's that silence. And in that silence, that's when you really start to feel yourself rubbing up against uncertainty. Right. And so it's a loop. You do that, you rub up against uncertainty, you have an insight, then you're like, okay, then you calm down, you are where you are, you rub up against uncertainty, and you have an insight. And it just becomes this process. But it's really important to enjoy those periods of quiet Enjoy those moments when you're just doing what you're doing, when you're just being what you are. This is why I enjoy doing dishes. I love doing dishes by hand because it's just something that I can do. I can get absorbed in each and every plate. I can get absorbed in whether or not I'm rushing or anything like all of that. It's just a complete experience in itself. And I'm not looking for the deeper insight. It's being embodied, right? In each and every thing that I do during that. And so it's interesting. We have this hesitation, and rightfully so, to let go of the inner narration, to let go of the inner dialogue that we're having with ourselves, because we are all the time, right? And that inner dialogue is reflected in our quote unquote outer dialogue with everyone else, but it really is just an ongoing conversation with ourselves about our existence. And that's all we're ever doing. And we don't have to. We can just exist. We can let the dialogue go, kind of like just, letting an old friend go home for a while so you can take a rest and come back and resume the conversation tomorrow.
Yeah, because the thing keeping you from that is the idea that you know anything about right now. Like the things that you're, in your room, the face someone makes, the thing someone says, there's a clinging to a certainty behind that you know what is happening right now. And when you recognize that you don't, the thing, the weight, whatever it is, because most people have something at every given moment, some weight that they're holding on to. It's just your assumption that you're correct. And when you're willing to let go of that, like maybe I'm not. What if I'm not? What if that's not the truth? And it can be maybe more difficult to do for things that you've held on to for a very long time, but it always comes back to that. And it's that uncertainty that is the lid for the insights to arise. Like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know how people perceive me. I don't know how I'm doing. I don't know where my value lies. I have no idea what I am conceptually. And you're willing to just sit in that. Like, yeah, I don't. And then you try and come up with something. But I know this. Like, yeah, no, you still don't know that. No, I know, but I know this. No, still don't know that. And then you're willing to sit in that where it's like, fuck, what do I do? Like, what do I have always held on to something. There's always been something tethering me to this thing, but without that and knowing that you can't know, like it shifts your experience enough that the insights start to arise from that. It's like it shakes them up, but it's the willingness to sit in that spot where you don't know. And you know that you can't know that they are able to arise through that. And that's the only spot that they do arise. Because as long as you're certain about something, it you can't have new, fresh insights. It's the willingness to be uncertain, especially about the things that you believe to be true about yourself.
Yeah, it was actually, I saw Amanda had her hand raised, but I just wanted to finish one last point. Since you mentioned that, while I was going through some of those insights earlier, I was kind of thinking about change because it is always constant change. And also in the episode that y'all had with Daisy, a lot of it was facing fear, a lot of it, and or facing uncomfortability even, or even having a judgment of what we're supposed to be feeling anyways, whatever task or situation we're walking into, that feeling is going to change, and it may be a good feeling, it may not be, it might be an uncomfortable feeling, but either way, the identification with any feeling to do with it doesn't change the task at hand. So without any kind of an identification with a preference for a feeling, then we can go ahead and do the thing without having, and just be ourself, and that's where it all kind of came together in the moment this morning. I'm sure it is cyclical and it's always changed anyways, but today it really fucking made sense. It's like, man, it's just always constant change. So anything that I really want to do, because I've been a little bit stuck here at times, I have a lot of things I would like to do to get started, but the fear has held me back. It might be procrastination. I might call it some other label. It might be I got busy, I might have to work, or I'm tired, or I could put any kind of a label on it, but it really is just procrastination due to that I'm not ready to face that feeling yet. And I wasn't, but I don't have, once that feeling is faced, I don't even have to identify with it. It's just a matter of just going through. And one last thing, I was thinking about change, and I'm thinking about even something as simple as a rock. I can hold a rock in my hand. I can look at that rock and think I know everything about that rock. But all the time I'm looking at that rock, there's a chemical composition change going on inside of that. Like there's degradation, the forces of nature cause everything to degrade. So from the time that I look at that rock to the time I stop looking at that rock, it's actually a different rock. And the whole time I've been looking at it, that rock has been going through change. I never know what that rock ever is, ever. And how could I ever know what I am or what direction I'm going to go in? You know, kind of like Ray mentioned earlier, where like I was shooting for the stars and I don't even know how to just enjoy my day yet. So it is really just relaxing into it. But thanks for letting me share, guys.
Yeah, no, I'm grateful for you sharing because it really is, and I do it more than anybody I know, man. I love it. It's just so much fun to soar and see how much we're capable of, and at the same token, it's recognizing that it really does enhance our appreciation of when we're not doing that. Just the capacity to understand that we can, that we're not as limited as we think. It changes our day-to-day experience. It changes our moment-to-moment experience all the time, and it's just knowing that you can really be an insightful motherfucker if you want to be, right? And it's nice to know, because I mean, how often do we tell ourselves that we're not capable of clarity, or we're not capable of understanding, or we're not capable of doing more with our life, or if you want to call it more, or getting more aligned, I guess you could say. It's all bullshit. You can do anything. It's just a matter of time and attention, right? So knowing that changes how much you need to get shit done, right? Suddenly you can sit on that beach and not think to yourself, but I'm not working on self-improvement. Recognizing that that's why you're on the beach. It's because you can appreciate it now. Enjoy that. You've worked that hard to get there, right? The self-improvement will come in challenging moments. Enjoy the ones that aren't. Amanda.
Sorry, I was just putting a small joke in the chat. I, I say my jokes really for me. You guys all just don't. You just get to relish in the comedic wonder that I swim in. No, but I love the rant, Jay, and I definitely watched the episode with Daisy. Incredible. I watched it twice in the first 24 hours because there's so many juicy nuggets, and it's just like reading a book again. Like there's no way I'm gonna get all the nuggets the first time around. So we got to go round 2, round 3, and go into it again. But I love this conversation about insights and about like the application. And so what came to mind was an analogy about the insights being like a juicy bite. And usually, sometimes I'll worry about when am I going to have my next juicy bite, and I'm not taking into consideration that the absorption of the nutrients is just as, if not more important than the bite to get to the nutrients, to get to the application. And but yet I think about the juicy bites. Is it a nutritious bite? Is it a tasty bite? How long has it been since the last bite? And so I'm thinking of all about these bites and forgetting that the whole point of taking the bite was to absorb the lesson, to absorb the nutrients that are coming from said insight or said bite. And I love the analogy that was given, walking through the fire. And there's so many different types of fire. So Jay, when you were talking like, oh, the fire could be fear, and I was like, oh, it could be, resistance. It could be paranoia. It could be insecurities. It can be anxiety. It can be any of that, because just like there are different types of fire, different flames, there's blue flames and white flames and red flames. And, so there's different types of fire. There's going to be different versions of the fire that you walk through. But it's so easy to not want to walk through it when we're constantly being sold fire extinguishers. Everywhere you look, it's like, oh, no, the fire's dangerous. And it's like, what isn't dangerous? What is it? Because the last time I checked, there is no risk-free option. Every option comes with risk. Every option comes with anxiety. There is no getting out of that deal. And so instead of thinking of anxiety and fear and resistance as this enemy that has to be vanquished And as much as I love dramatic flair, and I'm on a quest, and I shall vanquish thee, and you shall not plague me or my sons. Like, I love that. I love the drama. But that's not all there is. It's not that dramatic, because it's just a tendency. And so I love the live show that you guys did a couple days ago, where you were talking about if we replace disorder with tendency, and more so of instead of thinking about it as a replacement, just thinking about the fact that I have a tendency to be anxious, that I have a tendency to look for fire extinguishers, that I have a tendency to build an ice sculpture. And the ice sculpture is from the episode with Daisy, where Andrew, you were saying that the ice sculpture is the concept of us. So there's a concept of Amanda, and that is my ice sculpture, and I can try to protect it from the flames, but the flames are always going to be there. And the hilarious thing is that I can always make a new ice sculpture, right? But I can't eliminate fire as a factor, but I can always make a new sculpture. But yet I think that I have to protect the sculpture. Like, if it's gone, that's it, because I'm so attached to that sculpture that I can't imagine existing without it. But I was here before there was a concept of Amanda, before we got a name, before all of that, there was existence. Because as Kathy from the Vancouver retreat beautifully put, existence is existence is existence. And I felt like a record when I was on the shrooms, and I was the center of the record. And Kathy and I'm forgetting. She was like the music. She was like the notes of the music. And so as she's like walking around me saying existence is existence, I was just like, man, this feels like a loop. And it was just so funny, because it's like, when isn't there a loop? When isn't there a rant, Jay? When isn't there a reason to be like, woe is me? But it's okay to fall off the surfing board. It's okay to get burnt a little bit, because the fire isn't the enemy. Growth isn't the enemy, and neither are the tendencies. It's just things to notice, things we could change, because all options are always on the table, regardless of whichever one I focus on for however long I focus on it. It doesn't eliminate an option from being available, and it's always available, and I can always embrace it if I just notice that I haven't picked it yet and decide to pick it. And so it's just it's hilariously frustrating, and I'll end it on that note.
Yeah, because tendency, even in that way, it has this sort of neutral undertone. Like, disorder has this incredibly negative undertone, right? Whereas tendency is just kind of like, that's something that you do. And so, to your point, Amanda, it's so much harder to fight a tendency, but you're able to look at it now from a perspective where it's like, that's something I do pretty often. I'm experiencing some consequences of this. It's not that it means there's something wrong with me. It's just something that you can actually look at, instead of something that you fight and you try and get rid of, or you submit to. This is just who I am. This is just what I am. This is just it for the rest of my life. This is exactly how I'm going to be forever. Like, there is that there is that tendency towards us seeing disorders as something that are stuck to us. Like, they're stuck to us forever. It's like something that we carry with us throughout our entire lives. And it's this is my lot in life. I have this disorder. It's chemical imbalance. Like, how fucked is that statement even? That it's out of your control, something you were born with. Because if it's something you're born with, you can't even, it's not even worth considering. It's not even worth questioning if it's something that is inherent to you, that's inherent to your story. It's not even worth a singular, well, what if it's not? What if I could act a little bit differently? Because then that shakes everything. That shakes the fabric of your entire reality. And so along that line, it makes me wonder, with something, we think of disorders in a certain way, but we think of fears in a certain way too. And even my assumption that I have certain fears, are those fears not perpetuated by me continuing to say that I have a certain fear? I have a certain fear of this thing. It's like, do you know that? Like, when is the last time you confirmed that? When is the last time you faced that and were still afraid of it? Or is it just this thing, this narrative, this degree of certainty that you continue to carry with you throughout your life? Like, how many times do we have a certain fear, and then it comes into our reality? It comes up in an experience, and we're like, oh yeah, got through, oh, that actually wasn't as scary as I thought. So is it just our desire to keep it around, or my desire to have a fear that keeps them there? Can I actually confirm with any degree of certainty that I have certain fears? And then if I face them and I'm uncomfortable and I'm going through something with it, or have a certain experience like involved with experiencing the fear itself, but you see that it's just another experience. And so it's not really, do we have fears outside of just me continuing to tell myself a story that I have certain fears?
We have fear. We have fear. And then that translates into whatever it is we're doing or focused on. But it's the experience of fear, which is really the experience of self-doubt, right? Of self-analysis, of measuring yourself up rather than just continuing on. But the experience of fear is always there. It's just that it translates into different experiences.
Yeah. Oh, man. Just that. And as soon as I perceive myself to be something that I can conceptualize, it's like I just translate my fear of not being enough, fear of being incomplete, into an experience in which that would play out, in which I could confirm it. But it's the same sort of thing that I'm almost trying to give certainty to. Like, oh, it can't just be me making assumptions about things. It's got to be because of something, and passing that responsibility off to it. Yeah, yeah, Maddie. Good to see you.
It just from this conversation, I'm thinking about how we always try to overcome our fear as if it's like something that can be overcome, like we can completely diminish it. Fear is always going to be there, and I'm starting to see that fear is like, it's pretty much all the same. Like, it's that same feeling no matter what it is, right? And just talking about like disorders, lately I've been watching like some videos on TikTok how there will be autistic or neurodivergent people talking about the things that they go through. And I think that's just a massive assumption that you're special and you go through this and everybody else around you isn't going through the same thing. Like, they're just really good at masking themselves from it, distracting themselves from it, or maybe they haven't even like taken the time to sit with themselves and realize like what is going on. They just haven't had the chance to observe and watch where everything is coming from, or watch their reactions. Instead of giving themselves to the time to kind of observe, they just keep following through with their emotions, and they just keep clinging to this reaction because it's just been their go-to and it's so familiar. So it's just the thing that they naturally do. But I think it's interesting how neurodivergent people will talk about neurotypical people as if like they're dumber, or like, no, they don't know, like they're not as aware as we are, they're not as sensitive as we are. And it's like, no, this, like, we are all born the same. Do you see anybody going through some kind of like different process? Like, there's no other process that we know of. So it's ridiculous to think that one person can be like this and another person can be like that. I know that there are differences, but the way that we just like, it's just it's crazy for them to kind of put themselves up on a pedestal like that and think that they have more shit to deal with when we're all going through the shit. And I just see how that creates a like a separation between us when I don't even want to say supposed to be coming together, but when we can come together, just because we can. because we're all in this together. And I mean, what good is singling out a group of us and not allowing them to be exposed to the topics that you talk about just because you think that they think in a particular way, or because you think that this is how they are, when really they just might not have ever been exposed to this kind of thinking or this way of seeing things. Like, I've never been diagnosed with any kind of like disorder or anything, but when I listen to people talk about the things that they go through or the things that they experience or how this happens or how that happens, I'm like, yeah, like I totally relate to that. Like, I do this here and there. Like, it's not just you going through this. Like, everyone experiences this on some on the spectrum. You just might be wrapped up in it or had more time to kind of go back and forth than I have. But yeah, I don't have much else to say, but just wanted to drop that in there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, that whole desire to see someone as something, or like neurodivergent versus neurotypical and all of that, is just another mechanism of maintaining me, of maintaining my perspective of myself. Like, they're all just mechanisms of doing that. Like, the false certainty that I am what I think I am. They're all just we're all just experiencing different ways to do that, to maintain that I'm something separate from something else, right? And we do it in many, many different ways to make ourselves feel a little bit more certain, not realizing that that's, what's maintaining our prison.
Jazz.
Yeah, it's something I had been noticing through my gender transition was the question about whether or not the gender dysphoria that I was feeling was a result of some sort of biological innate feeling that I am a woman, or if it's a consequence of the mentality that I'm invested in. And so that was really interesting to see play out, because if there is like a biology behind it, some chemistry behind it, then I'm kind of locked into this one path, and so there's not very much nuance for decisions I could make, because then I'm feeling certain feelings about some type of way about some discomfort with many different parts of my body and how they don't fit into this idea that I have, that of what it needs to fit into. And it's kind of funny how all of those ideas that I have in my head are exactly what is expected of a woman. So it's interesting how it's like kind of just aligned like that in my head. And so yeah, I was just noticing how I went to see the Barbie movie a few days ago. Great movie, highly recommend. Um, but yeah, it kind of highlighted points about how women feel gender dysphoria based on what is expected of a woman in society, what that role means. And so it's not just trans people and people who are undergoing gender transition that feel gender dysphoria, but also cisgendered people. And I do think that when you're identifying so heavily with, some characteristics that are opposite to the puberty that you went through, then obviously you're going to have so many more things that you feel like you want to change about your body, because then it's like the spectrum or the gap is bigger. And so then the suffering feels so much more intense. And so yeah, my experience with gender dysphoria has been so interesting, because it felt like it was just there and there's nothing I could do about it except hormones and like the things that they recommend, the doctors recommend when you have gender dysphoria. And what I noticed was that all I was doing was putting like some ice on a huge fucking wound, and like it's not really doing anything except making me feel a little bit better, but it's like the wound is still there and it's festering, and it's like, holy shit, dude, like maybe there's some different way to approach this. But yeah, it was just so much fucking pain. And it was like, okay, now I need to change my voice so that I feel more comfortable in the bathrooms and locker rooms. So now the voice has to change as well, and the face as well doesn't do the job by today's standards. And so there's all these expectations of what I need to be and who I need to do, who I need to who I need to be. And it's just so limiting in terms of what you can express, and you're fitting into an idea of what you need to be. And when you're trying to fit into an idea, then you're not the full spectrum. You're not allowing yourself to be yourself, and it's you miss out on so much color that you could express when you're not necessarily feeling like you need to go down that one path. And so that idea that it is biologically innate, and that it is something that you cannot change, and that you just have to like get with it, like gender dysphoria is just part of your experience now, and you just need to have these surgical and medical interventions, is so disempowering, because it takes away your ability to realize that you are kind of causing your own suffering by investing in the identity that you need to be perceived in a certain way when you don't. You don't need to be perceived in any way. And the more I've been letting go of any kind of perception of me, of what this needs to be perceived, like how this needs to be perceived, it's been so much easier to let go of needing to feel like I need to be perceived as a woman. And so it's interesting because like a ways into my journey, I understood the idea that gender identity is an illusion, that man and woman is just constructs that we've created. And so it's, it's like theoretically the understanding was there, but it's not until I realized that the fear can be there and the discomfort can be there, and I can still do whatever I want to do because I have that strength, that power, and that discomfort means growth. Like there's this idea that because there's discomfort, then I need like treatments and stuff, or I can just sit in the discomfort and be okay with it and realize it means nothing about me and it never meant anything about me. And the only reason I may think that it meant something about me is because of the conditioning and things that I went through that made it feel like I needed to be perceived in a certain way when I never did.
I just want to say we love you, Jazz. Truly, thank you for sharing all of that. It's really important, and I think this is the reason that a lot of people tend to get upset about children being approached about this conversation, because children really just don't. They're already trying to figure out who they are, and somebody comes over and says, "What, you're not comfortable with change? Well, there's something wrong with you. We got to fix for that." And kids just want to be like, "Yeah, that's great." Like my own daughter, from time to time, she's just overwhelmed with being a human being. And as her parent, I'm just like, yeah, that's being a human being. Like that's what it is. Whereas we tend to have this idea that, if you're anything other than numb, then something's wrong, right? You're too up or you're too down, and it's like you got to find this middle road, and the whole point is to live. The whole point is to go through that spectrum and to grow with each and every decision that you make, until one day. And I guess this is the gift of age, is that after a while you start to recognize how much fucking time you wasted thinking about shit that didn't fucking matter, thinking about people's perspectives that didn't fucking matter, that you'll never fucking see again, right? Or that were judging you because of their own shit. And you get to this point where you're like, if I added up all the fucking hours, oh my God. And it just dawns on you. You're just like, oh, that's more than I've watched cartoons. Like, it really hits you, and you really start to reprioritize things. And, I say this and I don't mean to sound like down or anything, but you start to come to terms with the fact that you're not invincible. By about the end of your 20s, the early 30s, you start to go, right, this thing's starting to hurt a little. And you start to realize that you will eventually fucking die. And that there's a certain amount of time between then and now. And are you going to give up even one of those fucking moments for some dick who's judging you for their own fucking reasons? Because you'll never get that moment back. You'll never get that moment back. What are you going to do? You're going to be there at the moment of your death thinking to yourself, well, I'm glad I gave Jim that 3 minutes. Like, fuck that noise. Like, it's living for you. It really is, because that's the opportunity you have, is to grow, is to change, and to recognize more and more with each step, with each change, that you are change, that you are very good at it, and you are stronger than you could ever possibly imagine. And that's the point of growing. So it's good to have you here, Jess.
Yeah,
Great. Go ahead.
I think that has been the thing that I've really been enjoying about this realization is that I really can just generate energy for things that I'm doing in the moment for the moment, rather than feeling like I'm going to be something. And so that has been so awesome, because now it feels like I can do all these different things that I've always wanted to do, but felt like I wanted to be a woman who was doing all these things, you know? So it felt like there was always this lack, that I felt like if I was dancing, then I wanted to be a woman that was dancing. If I were doing anything else or anything like that, it felt like until I feel like I'm perceiving myself that way, that it wasn't enough. And honestly, it's kind of crazy, because it was like, it's no wonder that I was feeling so limited. It felt like there was a huge weight that I was carrying, that I was carrying around in every moment, that it felt like. And so it's definitely a process that's unfolding, I think, where it's like, see it, let go, see it, let go, see it, let go. And the more I'm doing it, the easier it's becoming. And the more I'm doing it, the more opportunity I'm seeing for expression in whatever way, in whichever direction. And it doesn't have to be anything that I thought in what in whichever direction I thought I would go in, because I have no idea where I'm going. And it's nice to know that I don't need to have any sort of checkpoints along that journey, or any sort of flags where it's like, okay, now I get this surgery at this time, and then I'll feel some sort of way that is more fulfilling of the experience that I'm feeling now. It's like there's none of that now. Like I don't I don't know where we go here, but it's nice to know that there's that freedom to explore and to be curious about wherever that is.
That's beautiful. And I just want to say that, this is something that everybody goes through in their own way, I think, is that figuratively, we all think that we need to be something to enjoy the dance. And really, there's nothing better than being able to dance without judging who we are, to just dance as ourselves, and we all go through that. So I'm glad you're learning to dance, and we all are.
Likewise, I appreciate you sharing all of that, Jazz. I appreciate you. Period. End of story. But that concern of being something, like, if you maintain an idea of what you think you are or what you think you should be, it's going to dictate your actions. So whether you see yourself as a woman, or you see yourself who's good at things, you see yourself as a woman, you have to dance as a woman, which is just a conceptual idea. You see yourself as someone who's good at stuff, and you don't think you're good at dancing, you're just not going to dance. You're just going to avoid it. So we're always handcuffing ourselves. I'm someone who is this, and therefore I must always fit that bill, no matter what I'm doing, no matter what I'm stepping into. I'm someone who doesn't fail. So therefore, if I go into something where there's the opportunity to fail, I just won't go into it. I just won't do it. I'll just fucking avoid it, because I'm not someone who fails. I'm not someone who stumbles. I'm not someone who this. I'm someone who does this. I'm not someone who does this. So therefore, we just box ourselves in, until we're so confined that we barely move. We don't do anything outside of the things that we know we can do. And that's pretty much the process of becoming an adult, right? Growing up, becoming more and more certain about what I can and can't do, until I'm in this tiny little box and never try anything new. Because I can't, because I'm not someone fails, because what would that mean if I'm someone who fails? Someone who fails is less than. Someone who fails isn't enough. So therefore, I must avoid anything in which that potential may arise. And so, with things like gender dysphoria as well, like everyone goes through it. Everyone's experiencing it. If anyone maintains any idea of what the fuck it means to be a man or a woman, they experience gender dysphoria. And the further you see yourself from what you're supposed to be or what you're born as, the more drastic the things that must be changed. I've used this example before. If I go into a store and don't buy a pink shirt because I don't think that's the way to be a man, that's some degree of an action that I must take in order to avoid. If I see myself as something else, have a stronger, more of a disparity, there must be more drastic actions taken. But we're always somewhere on that spectrum, as long as we're maintaining an idea of what we think it means to be something, and we're coupling that with an idea of ourselves. And it's where those line up dictates how extreme of an action I must take in order to match that conceptual idea of what I think I am.
I'm going to pass this to Amanda in a second, but it just dawned on me that, and we see this all the time, but age dysphoria is something that pretty much everybody suffers through, because when you're younger, you want to be older, and when you're older, you want to be younger. It just kind of dawned on me, like, that's something that everyone suffers from. And I wonder how long it's going to take before that becomes a fucking thing. Oh shit, what did I do?
Amanda?
Sorry, I was just speaking in oldest English in thy chat. Somebody was wondering like what we're doing, and I'm just being amusing for my own sort. And so I'm just saying things in the chat. Everyone's getting into it. It's like, I raise this, thy handeth. And it's like definitely not accurate at all, but it's just to do it just because you fucking can. And I have been absolutely much obliged to the Jazz. Very, very obliged. I am really appreciating hearing your perspective because through no choice of my own, I've kind of been in like the in between, like in the gray area. So I if people ask, I identify as a cisgendered woman. But when I was growing up, I was constantly called a tomboy. And so because I didn't fit the norm, they told me that I wasn't a normal girl. And so I kind of had to I didn't stop running to trees. I didn't stop racing the boys. I didn't stop doing any of the things that classified me as a tomboy. But it was just something that I kind of knew that I didn't fit that mold well. And then I got older and I kept hearing like as a teenager, like, oh, I can't think of you like a regular girl, Amanda. You're like a guy. You're like, and it was just because they couldn't process that I was exhibiting masculine tendencies. Right. So it's not that I was dressing like a boy. I wasn't talking like a boy. I wasn't actually trying to be a boy. I was just doing things that they associated with boys. And because they associated with boys, it must be that the boys own those traits, own those tendencies. And so if I exhibit them, I was a tomboy. And then it transitioned to, are you sure you're not a lesbian, Amanda? Like you might not even know you're in the closet. And I was like, oh shit, really? What do I know? I'm just attracted to boys. What does that mean? Obviously nothing. Because I exhibit assertiveness and boldness, and I do it unapologetically, and I did it despite knowing that I didn't fit the mold. It was like, oh, then you must be a man, or you must want to be. And so it's been quite interesting that I never took their word. So I never thought that I was a lesbian. I never thought that I was a boy in a girl's body. I never thought that anything that they told me was true. I just was doing what I wanted to do because I was having fun. And if anybody hangs out with me, you know that I tend to do what I want. I was during the Vancouver retreat, I was like going into full lizard mode. And what that means, everybody, is that I was finding large rocks and sitting on those rocks and laying on those rocks as a lizard would. Not caring. And I said it exactly like that. And it was like, oh, this isn't graceful. This isn't feminine. This isn't masculine. This is lizard-like, motherfuckers. Like, we are having a lizard moment and we are going to bask in this sun just because we feel like we can, And so it's been hilarious to kind of see that you get branded and you think you're winning when you get to pick the brand, but it's just as painful. Like, this is my label. Like, oh, I'm a tomboy, and so I'm just gonna brand myself with this, and that's all I am. And it's like, no, it's just that you exhibit whatever you can, and all options are available. So it doesn't matter if you pick something that's described as feminine or masculine or assertive or passive. It's like that just happens to be what you picked, and you can pick anything at any time, and it means nothing about you. And I was thinking about you, Jazz, while I was at the airport, and I was looking at the bathrooms, and I was like, damn, how fun is it that Jazz can like pick both bathrooms, and she could, and it doesn't matter which bathroom you pick, somebody will be bothered. You go into the girls' bathroom and it's like, you can't be here. You go into the guys' bathroom in a dress, you can't be here. It was like, and I was talking with a friend, and they were like, and if she's really feeling crazy, she might go to the handicap bathroom without a wheelchair. She might, hey, you can't be here. And it's like, says who? You in the fucking bathroom police? Like, back up. Obviously, you have nothing better to do with your time than look at me just walking through doors and using a toilet. Because last time I checked, the toilet doesn't care what ass is on it. It probably just doesn't want any asses on it. But it's not its lucky day. Down the hatch it goes. So, it just seems so crazy that we talk about growing pains, and that's literally a saying, growing pains. And yet all I see is avoiding the pain, but still trying to pretend that you're growing. But you can't grow without the growing pains, because that's why we've never called it growing comforts. And so it just seems so funny that people want to brand you just because it's easier for them to put you in a box, and they just want a permanent label on that box. But they don't know what they're doing, and they don't even agree with their labels, because I never felt like I was a woman, but I never felt like I was a man trapped in a woman's body. I just always felt like I'm just Amanda. And even now it's just like I'm just whatever choice I happen to be on. So like we're like a mystery, like like shaking the magic 8 ball. Like, what are we gonna get? Try again later. Shit. But it just feels fun to ask and not really care about the answer, and just to keep it light even when the answer feels heavy or when it feels light. And so it's been really inspiring and beautiful to watch you examine the in between space that you're in, Jazz, because it feels like I resonate with it to the degree where I don't really feel like I fit into either side, but I don't feel like I fit into no side. I feel like I could, where's the select all option, because that's what it feels like we're living.
Jazz, if you have anything you'd want to follow up that with, otherwise we'll throw it over to Maddie.
Yeah, I can go. I find it interesting because it felt like when I was starting to identify with being a woman, it feels like the motivations were in part due to wanting to express parts of myself that I wasn't able to express when I was identifying with a man. And so there was this idea of what a man can and cannot express, and so, which is obviously arbitrary and nonsensical. But it's like, it's interesting how jumping into the other box then meant that I couldn't exhibit characteristics that I was exhibiting before. So it's like now I have to, like, now it's not even about being myself, it's about fitting into another box. And it did feel like that in some ways. It was due to wanting some, like feeling afraid of the consequences of being perceived as a man. There's so many different things going on there, but it felt like it was the way I would be perceived would get me less hurt if I were a woman. And so it felt like the safer choice for me, because it felt like the life would hit me less hard if I were. And it's funny given the context of everything, but that's how it felt. And so it's when you say that going to the male bathroom or the female bathroom, I find that so funny because it's so true. It's like there's no there's no option that leaves everyone satisfied with my presence in the bathroom. So I have really been appreciating just not caring and just doing whatever the hell I want, and that has been giving me the freedom to feel like I can do anything that I felt like I didn't have an option to before, like growing a beard. Like, that's not an option that I felt like I loved having a beard before transitioning. And so after identifying with a woman, it felt like, oh, like I hated it after. And so it's interesting how that shift occurred as well. But now it's like, fuck yeah, that would be pretty cool. and like and and including having, like, I've really been enjoying having long hair because I can do so many different things with it. But it's so nice to have that kind of freedom where, whether in behavior or myself up or whatever, it's, or how I talk as well. I've been like learning how to talk, and like, I was, as part of my transition, I was learning how to speak in a more feminine voice, but there was so much of that learning process was allowing me to look at what different things go into a voice as well. So there was a lot of appreciation for the fact that the voice we have is just a habitual pattern, just like everything else. And so the way that we speak is just because that's the muscles we were using growing up, and so that's just how we talk. But it's not, you can create different habits just like with anything else. And so yeah, I've been enjoying the process of like fucking around with my voice as well, and just trying different things, going deeper as well, sometimes going higher, and just enjoying that process of being changed in whichever direction it is. Like, there's no direction that I feel like I need to stick in anymore. So it's nice when it goes in all directions everywhere.
Well said. I'll add something real quick and then throw it to Maddie. I appreciate the patience, Maddie, but the voice changes. Like, I would argue, I've known to some degree, in some way, shape, or form, everyone on this call right now for at least a few months, and I would argue that everyone is an entirely different person than they were a few months ago. Everyone is an entirely different person than they were at the start of the call. People have mentioned, differences in Ray and my flow since episode 1, especially my voice, how I talk. Like, there's been massive shifts in that. And yet, so everyone's always a different person each and every day, but we maintain this story of what I am, or what I think I should be, or what I think I'm capable of. And that cuts us off from being ourselves. But everyone's changing all the time. Like, everyone's always a different person. And you're a different person to everyone that you meet. You're a different person to you than you are to anyone else. There's so many different iterations of you right now. And it's always the case, but we're always changing, whether we see ourselves as changed or not. Like, we are inherently different. Maddie.
Oh, you're not coming through, Maddie.
I accidentally typed in the chat. It's all good. Amanda and Jazz, I love everything that you guys are saying. And yeah, I feel like there's not much else that I can add that can make whatever you guys have said like already great. But when I was growing up, it felt like the idea of being a girly girl was presented to me, and I was just like, nah, I don't want to be that, because look at all the boys, they're playing with all the cool shit over here. They're all over there, I want to be with them. So I felt like I was a tomboy as well, like was never really interested in doing the whole girly thing, because I thought that if I was going to be a girly girl, then I would have to adopt the narrative that went along with it. Like, I always saw women or females as being like the stay-at-home mom, or like, yeah, she's the one who looks after their house, she's the one who looks after the kids. And I was just like, I don't want to do that. That's like, no, like at the time I was like struggling to be around kids my age, or not kids my age, just never really liked babies, and was like, I don't know how to deal with them. Like, I don't know how to read them. Like, it just seemed like too much. But yeah, I just felt like the boys were always getting the attention, or like there was more things or opportunities or options for them to do than girls. Like, all of the girls just had the really boring, like, what seemed jobs. Like, yeah, you can be a hairdresser. And it's like, what? Who the fuck wants to like play with hair. Like I play with my friend's hair at school. I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. And just, yeah, no, that just didn't seem fun. And then all of these other like, it just felt like you had to be really smart to get anywhere in life. And I felt like I was being treated as a dumb student, but it just felt like there wasn't enough time, or the teachers didn't have enough time to give me that attention to kind of sit down with me and like have a one-on-one to figure out if I was like on the level of everyone else. But as I was growing up, I like kind of resented the fact that I had been born a female, because I was just like, man, this sucks. Like we have to wear skirts. Like I just want to wear pants. Like I have to deal with all of these body parts and everything changing and like getting a period. And it's like, why the fuck do I have to go through this? And they don't. There was just so much rage and so much unfairness. Like everything when I was growing up, it just seemed to be unfair. And then because I have a brother as well, and because he's younger, he gets babied a lot. So he kind of like he's always been favored, and I've just sort of accepted like, yeah, he's going to be favored and I'm not even going to fight it. I'm just going to accept it, and that's the way it is. And then like my parents will always like question me, oh, I don't get this, like why is he like that? And I'm like, well, you guys were like this when he was growing up, like do you ever think about that? But I'm getting a little bit sidetracked with the chat popping up and trying to keep on with what I'm talking. Sorry. And I just see Amanda like hysterically laughing. But I love it. I love it. But yeah, just I can't remember where I was going with this now. I'm happy to pass it on to Jay.
Okay.
Thanks,
take it away.
Maddie. You're gonna pass it right on to me. Okay. Throw me right in the fire. Thank you. It's what it's all about, right? You know, that fear or whatever when we're feeling that. That's kind of how it is. And I remember when I first started listening to the show, I signed up for Beyond Belief way back, the workshop. And I was very new to it, and I didn't even know what the heck was going on, really, honestly. And I think I was like almost like, I don't even think I talked the whole thing. I think it was like a 2-hour workshop, day one that I was in, and I don't remember even talking in the video. It was pretty crazy because I just was so in the feels about how I might come across on video and everything. You know, it's a different experience, and but I really was feeling that fear, you know. But and that's not the case today. Thank you, Maddie. I don't have, you know, actually, I was thinking along the lines of dysphorias and stuff like that too. And when when I'm younger, you know, when we're younger, we're kind of conditioned into these things in a way. You know, it's like we're learning. Okay, this is blue. Oh, that's blue. Thanks. All right, and this is the number 3. Oh, that's number 3. Great, thanks. And you're a boy. Oh, I'm a boy. Great. And these are all like facts, you know, that we accept as truth because that's what people are telling us, right? And so when we go on in life, say, and you've got a feeling that that's not what you are, then it's going to cause a lot of struggle. I can only imagine. And for me, in my case, my feeling was that I was just not with the world. Like I was very much separate. Um, am I on? Am I even on? Oh yeah, I am. Okay. So I was very much separate, and I lost a train of thought now. I'll laugh and crack me up. Where was I at with that? But that is a dysphoria in itself, I think. You know, just the idea that I'm this and not that. You know, a lot of events happened, and I was quite sad for a long time as a kid, and I thought that was just going to be the way it is. Like I'm just a sad person. Like life's just not fair to me. Like maybe there's just something wrong with me. You know, I don't belong here. All these things that a depressed person might think, and that became like my identity. That became my gender, if you will, you know what I mean, in that kind of respect. And I so identified with that, you know, and then I had to kind of face that. And then in any way that we can identify, it all kind of comes down to the same thing. I think once we can face that fear and just walk anyways, go through it, then it kind of settles off. And I hope you feel that way now too. You should, because we're all, we're all just us. We're all just being. It doesn't have to be I'm this or that. And I love you too, Jazz, and I love everybody here, honestly. So thanks. That's all I've got.
We love you too, man. And that's just it. The ability to just to even step into something without any regard for how it's going to go or how it's going to be heard. Because anytime we step into something with an idea of how it should sound or how it should be, is this false fucking certainty that we know what the best thing to say, the best response to have, the right thing to say, the correct way to say it, the correct way to sound. And you stepping into something without any idea of what the fuck you're going to say versus you stepping into something with some idea of what you're going to say and then saying that thing is equally as uncertain with how it's going to be perceived. It's just you that you're satisfying. It's just your certainty that this thing that I've come up with is the best thing to say, is the correct thing to say, as opposed to just stepping up and being like, I got nothing, but here we go. Find out. Like they're equal. They're equally as appropriate, no matter what is ever said. And that's kind of freedom. And I appreciate your insights that you just shared, because now I'm getting hit with this like, holy fuck. They're equatable. That desire to know what to say versus the willingness to step into something without an idea of what to say, they're equally as able to be perceived by anyone in any way. Like, it's just my desire to know what the right thing to say is. And then I hold on to it and I'm like, shit, I totally forgot what I was going to say. It's like this assumption that what I was going to say was the best thing to say when you don't know that. And so if it goes, whatever comes, saying that is just as appropriate as anything else and has an equal ability to be perceived by someone, because everything we say is perceived differently by everyone that we're interacting with. And I'm now realizing that the chat popping up, I'm like, as I'm typing, because earlier in the episode, I was like, oh, that could be distracting, the chat popping up. And then I was like, fuck it, whatever, we'll get to do it. And now it's like, it pops up and I'm like, yeah, I totally forgot where I was going, even though exactly what I was saying was the recognition that you don't have to know where you're going. And you can lose track of what you're going to say, forget what you're going to say, and just step up and say something. And as long as you just keep saying stuff, there's an equal opportunity for it to be perceived or resonated with by anyone. And it's the willingness to let go of the certainty that what you think is the best thing to say is the best thing to say. Could be better off forgetting what you're going to say and then saying whatever the fuck comes out, whatever you're able to pull out of your ass in the moment. It's like, bleh, just vomit that stuff out. There's just as good of a chance. And oftentimes that is where that, connection is found, is through whatever comes out when you're not trying to come up with the right thing to say.
Well, we are all floundering around talking about what not to say or not knowing what to say. Somebody actually asked a question about what do we mean by retreat in the Netherlands, and so I just wanted to take a quick moment and say a dualistic unity retreat is not your typical mindfulness or wellness retreat. It is quite literally a retreat from the need to be fucking anything, and so it really is an opportunity for you to just be yourself, practice authenticity, vulnerability, not worry about judgment because you're not judging anybody else, and to be in an environment with a bunch of other people who are doing the very same thing. Now, I say that, and I caution whoever is listening to at least be familiar with the podcast. Do check out season 1, season 2, get into the groups if you can before you come to one of these retreats, because it's important that you walk into this conversation understanding that it's not what you likely think it is. If this is not something you're familiar with as a conversation or as a podcast, then it really helps to go back to season 1 and season 2 and understand this is not philosophy. This is not spirituality. This is not self-help. This is not any of those things. And so the retreat is not like anything that you've ever been to. There is no structure per se. You're not going to go there and have a list of things that you get to do throughout the day from hour to hour to hour. It's just you. which is really what it should be the entire time, your relationship with yourself. And you can spend some time by yourself. You can take a walk along this around this giant property. You can go sit in the hot tub, or you can have a really interesting conversation with somebody who is doing their own work, their own introspection. And so these retreats are really a lot of fun. We also have a potential retreat coming up at the beginning of October in Vancouver. That's a mini retreat. That's only 4 days from Thursday afternoon until Monday morning. So if you're interested in that, I will throw up the QR code here in a second. There it is. So you can also go to dualistiCunity.com/Vancouver. But we actually have 3 people in the room right now who have been to a retreat. So, and not just a mini retreat, but actually the long, full 9-day retreat, which is what we're going to be having in the Netherlands in November. So, since we are, talking about authenticity and just kind of shooting from the hip, who would like to shoot from the hip and talk about their retreat experience first? Jazz.
Yeah, sure. As you were talking, Ray, I was thinking about how during the retreats, it's felt so much like it's so easy to be myself because it feels like there are no expectations of me. And it feels like it's one of the few places I've experienced where people, in my life at least, people um, don't need you to be anything. They're they're just there. That's it. That period. That's all that we know, and then we just move from there and then do whatever we do from there, and we have no idea what we'll do, where we'll go, how we'll hang out, who like what the conversations will be like, but it's always so much fun stepping into that uncertainty with people who are also willing to step into that uncertainty, because then you get to be so creative with your expression. And that's kind of what I've been enjoying about like letting go of this identity of a woman, is that it's been so exciting to see the entire rainbow. And so when I am like going out on a walk now, I will notice like shrubs of blackberries, which I didn't ever notice before. But on the newest Vancouver retreat, we were picking off blackberries from nearby places in the neighborhood, and like it was so cool that I was noticing these things now. And today I was on a run as well, and I just started lizarding on a bunch of rocks, like what like after my run, and I never would have even like thought to do that before. But it's that state of relaxation and letting go and realizing that you can do it and just like relax into it has been really nice, because the retreats I feel like have been a really cool place for me to see that North Star thing, where it's like it shows me what is possible, and then I can come back to my life like here where I'm living, and then see what how I can incorporate those learnings. Because the more I've been to like a few retreats now, like 4 I think, like one full retreat and 3 mini retreats. And after every retreat, I feel like there's so much that I learned that I incorporate into my life, that it feels like my life feels like a retreat more and more. Like I'll be with my parents hanging out, and before any of the retreats, we were just like I wouldn't hang out. I wasn't hanging out with them, and there was just so much going on there, and I literally wasn't like for my birthday. I literally didn't go because there was so much drama that was happening. And now it's like I'm spending so much time with them, like all the time, and it's so much fun because I'm not holding on to any of their expectations, and just being myself and not feeling like they need to be anything either. And it's providing so much room for growth for all of us. So it's feeling like my time with my parents feel like a different kind of retreat as well, that it never used to feel like before. And so it's really nice to learn and grow from amazing the amazing kind of environment that's created at the DU retreats.
Thank you, Jazz. We really appreciate you sharing that. And it's great to have you at these retreats, because each and every time we've seen you, you've been an entirely different version of you, more and more yourself each and every time. And specifically, I'm talking about karaoke. You know, I know between the first karaoke to the last karaoke that there was definitely an alignment with just fucking doing it, just dancing. And it was fucking beautiful to see. And so, who would like to go next, Maddie or Amanda? All right, Maddie, do it up. Oh, you're pointing at Amanda.
Yeah.
I'm like, I thought it was like right here, right here. No,
Right
you're
now, bitch.
pointing at Amanda, who's
Right now.
below you. Yeah, exactly. Amanda.
That's right. Into thine fire I shall go. I'm really having too much fun slaughtering medieval talk because I know that I'm saying all of it wrong with no regard. There's no my treachery knows no bounds. But to get back on thine topic, the retreat. It is unlike anything I have ever been to, and I love a good adventure. I love going out. I take myself to do things like check out amusement parks, check out attractions, hike up mountains, hugging 2,000-year-old trees. Like I get to surroundeth, you know. again, again, we're just doing it. We're just saying things like this just because fuck it. But truly though, the 9-day retreats are very different than the mini retreats, because the mini retreats, although it does feel like we're together for a lot longer than 3 to 4 days, like the 9 days felt like I was with this group for like a year. And it only felt like a year because to me it had that same fullness. And I remember Jazz is the one who asked the question during the April 2023 retreat in Vancouver Island, and it's towards the end of the retreat, and she's like, you know, how long did it feel like for you guys? And I'm like, a year at bare minimum. And it was just because it had that same fullness, you know, the amount of things, the amount of interactions, conversations, memories made, moments laughing on the floor to the point of tears, like the amount of things that I on average in my head would experience in a year is what it felt like in the 9-day retreat. And it just was because everybody was so present. And even after I think the Vancouver retreat that was just last month, I had a 24-hour period afterwards that felt like 2 days. And it was only because we were, you know, I was so present. And so everything that was around me felt like it was stretched. And when you're at these retreats, everybody is there. No one is thinking, and even if they think about it for a moment, nobody's really thinking about home. People weren't on their phones. People weren't trying to watch TV or watch movies, or people were there. They wanted to talk. They wanted to share. They wanted to just go for a walk. And so when I had a friend ask me about the retreat, and I'm telling the friend, I'm like, you know, the point is the people, because the friend wanted to maybe go on an adventure outside of the Netherlands retreat. Like, oh, the Van Gogh Museum is going to be right there. And I'm like, I don't think you get it. Like, hanging out with all of you is the point. Like, going to these retreats to be there, to share presence, to that is the whole goal. Like, it's not, there is no itinerary other than like, be here. That's it. That's the whole itinerary. Sometimes be here looks like walking. Sometimes be here looks like eating together at a table. But the only objective is to just be there and not to be thinking that you want to be anywhere else, which is so common. And so when I tell people about the retreats, I'm like, make sure when you're going for you, because if you bring a partner, if you bring a friend, if you bring someone, they tend to want to bring the history with you. And so I told this friend, I was like, I'm not going as your friend. I'm not even going as Amanda. I'm just going because I want to go and I want to let go of everything. So if you want to go, make sure you're going for you, because I'm not going to be there to hold your hand or to make you feel better. Like, my job is not to make my friends feel better. So make sure you're not going for that, because you're not going to get it. So it's not for sale. Do not try to buy it. Make sure that you're going because you want to do it for yourself. And it's a great practice for when you leave the retreat. You take that with you. And so I have moments where I can feel myself back at the retreat. I can hear certain jokes or certain conversations that I maybe wasn't a part of, but I got to listen to, certain scenes I got to walk in on, certain doodles that I got to draw, like certain walks we went on. Like, you take that with you, because rarely are you so present that you can soak it in. And so it's amazing that once you leave that retreat, you realize that you always had that ability, that you always could be present, that you always could absorb as much as you could to digest and be open to. And so it's not that when I leave the retreats things got easier, it's that I stopped fighting, I stopped resisting, and I finally admitted to myself that I was the wall that prevented me from engaging my day-to-day life as fully as I allowed myself to at the retreats. And so everyone gets to co-create that space with us. But if you really wanted to, you can spend your retreat locked up in a room waiting for somebody to save you. But if you're looking to be a princess in a tower, just realize that the dragon's also in there too. And you can do that both at the retreat and at home. So you make sure when you're coming to these retreats that you're coming to enjoy the experience and to enjoy the step that you paid to be on. So just keep that in mind, that the retreat is not really a retreat. It's what you make of it, like it's always been. And so being around people that take that a little more openly, kind of bursts your own bubble, almost proves you wrong, that like, oh no, I can't do that, or I can't do that with strangers. It's like, no, you can. And when you see other people at the retreat doing it, you're like, oh shit, that looks like a good time. And it's super welcoming, and you don't need to be invited. It's because it's always available. It's just you that puts up your hands and says, no, that doesn't make sense. And it's like, there are plenty of things that don't make sense, but you experience them anyways. And so I encourage people to come to the retreats, especially the 9 days, because there's something really magical about being able to spend that much time not experiencing time, just being in the moment with other people who want nothing from you, who do not want to convince you, who are not trying to make you feel better, but they're also not asking that of you. And so it felt incredibly freeing to be able to do anything just because I chose to, and to be able to receive something because I knew that the other people at the retreat weren't doing it to convince me they were a nice person. They were just doing it because they felt like choosing that option in that moment, given the circumstances. And so I felt more loved, more open to love, more easily able to share and connect than I did at the retreats. And not because it became easier, but because I stopped thinking it was impossible.
Well said. Beautifully said. Thank you for sharing that, Amanda. Because it's and one of the biggest things I've taken away, and this is just for me, like speaking from my own experience as always, because like these retreats for me are fucking experiences as much as anyone else. I am at this retreat, involved in it. You may think you're coming to, you know, see me be something if I'm just fucking maintaining my own idea of what I should or shouldn't be, but it's a safe spot for you to question your own assumptions about yourself and use it as a testing ground, because the assumptions about ourselves, the things that we think keep us safe, the story we tell ourselves, it's oftentimes very difficult to question it. We don't feel safe to question that, to act differently when we're surrounded by people who are reinforcing that story, who are doing everything they can to confirm that story. When you're surrounded by a bunch of people who are letting go of the certainty they have about themselves, they're also going to be letting go of the certainty they have about you, their idea of you. And so there's an opportunity in a spot like that to test the waters. That's not necessarily an easy place to find. There's not necessarily many places that don't see you as something, that want you to be something, that want you to stay in the way that you've always been. And so it's a spot in which you can test that out. And you realize that the only discomforts you're experiencing are your own. The only judgments you're experiencing are your own judgments about yourself. And if you're willing to take responsibility for those judgments because you're just left with yourself, because there isn't anyone there judging you, then you're able to change. Then you're able to shift that. You're finally able to see, oh, it's always just been my own judgments. I've been able to pass it off to other people because there maybe are certain perceptions in a lot of different areas about you that other people are maintaining just because they're trying to maintain their own ideas. But when you're left with yourself, you either have the opportunity to take responsibility for those things and make change and feel a little bit more free because you realize that it always just comes down to you, or you can run from that. You can shy away. You can stay in your room the whole time. There's nothing wrong with either of them, but the opportunity is there, and there's an ability to have an experience like that that is pretty fucking rare, honestly. I think it's incredibly rare to be able to be in a spot in which you're able to see that the only judgments that you feel are your own. We don't get the space to realize that. These retreats give you the space to realize that, which allows you to drop them, which allows you to see that it's just you hindering yourself. It's just you that's cutting thee off from thine potential, as they say. It's just fucking you getting in the way of what you could be if you stopped trying to be something for someone, which is just for you, and that feeling of certainty and safety that comes from being the thing or trying to be the thing that you've always tried to be, to keep your own potential, your own self at bay. But Maddie, would you like to share?
I think Amanda pretty much wrapped it up nice and neatly. But I was thinking how the retreats are kind of like a massage. Like the mini retreats are like a 30-minute massage or a 60-minute massage, and the full 9-day retreats are like a 130-minute, or 30-minute massage. Wait, no, 90-minute massage. Sorry, maths. But yeah, like the longer you're there for, the more relaxing that you can do, and the more you'll be able to reap the benefits that a retreat can bring. And it's not that like you show up to this retreat and all of this stuff's going to happen. No, you still have to input into the retreat. Like you get out what you put in. But it really is just a space to be around other people who are working on themselves as well, and trying to, or letting go of themselves, not trying to, but letting go of themselves, and realizing and recognizing that it's not the truth of what they are, and that just I feel that by being around a group of people who are also doing the same thing, it's we can put down that worry of how other people might be perceiving us, or those judgments, and just recognizing that it's all coming from us. Like you're always thinking about it. It's not actually happening. Like no one's actually saying those things to you most of the time, but it's just coming from you. And just seeing those familiar faces, it sort of reinforces it. Like if you're continuously going through, but going to the retreat, being in a new setting, environment, in a new space, just feeling like this whole new energy of like, it feels really light. And then you feel that you can drop your weight as well and rise up and be with everybody else. And then we all just rise each other up. And if one of us is like going through something, we can all feel it. And it's not like, we don't have this, we leave no man behind. Like we will be with that person. Like with Amanda at one of the retreats, Amanda was going through something, and we were all there for her. We were all with her, and we all needed to be there for her, because she was bringing us into it, like whether we like wanted to go it, like whether we wanted to be dragged into it or not. And we were just all there, and it was just such a big family, and there was just so much love, and I had never felt so free like in my life. And it really is a it's a reward. It's like, welcome, you have arrived. Like this is your reward. Now just enjoy and bask in this amazing moment. Like it's so beautiful because everything is like there for you. We have this amazing location. We get to go on these beautiful walks together, and they're so peaceful and enjoyable. Like, even if you're not even saying anything, like, even if you're not inputting in the conversation, it is just so beautiful to be there and just to be with all of these amazing people who, or versions of you. Like, it's just incredible to feel that you don't have to prove or be anything to anyone else, like not even for yourself. You just are. You're just feeling everything that you are, and you're just really being with yourself. There really is no worry. There's barely any thought. Like, by the second day, like, you're there's or the thought is just kind of gone. Like, or you're not even paying attention to it. It's there, but like, there is none of this concern of like, how is this person like thinking of me, or fuck, like, did I do the wrong thing? There's like none of that. You're just finding out more of who you are, or just you're learning to express yourself in different ways. And it, like, I highly recommend going to a retreat. Like, it is life-changing, because it like, it shows you the potential that you have, and like just that you don't have to live this way. The whole way that you've been living, you don't have to live like that anymore. And when you go back home, it just feels, everything feels new. And it just, like, what the retreat did for me, it helped me show that I am worthy of love, and I can love myself. And just learning to accept love in like all forms of love as well, even the love that we perceive to be harsh. But like, it gave me an opening to basically to end my relationship, because I could see that it needed to end, but I was just so scared of actually going through it, because I didn't think that I could do it. I had held on to it for so long. And then when I was at the retreat and had all of this space to be me, and just to be around just different people, just different energies, I knew, like, okay, I'm a lot happier than without being in the relationship or without thinking about it. And it was hard when I went home, because I felt like I had all of this energy behind me, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then there was the, like, I had finally gotten a reaction that I had never gotten before when I went to break up. And then I kind of just fell back into that comfort and was like, yeah, okay, just going back into old patterns. And then I was unhappy, and I could just tell, like, yeah, no, the thing that I wanted to do before was the right decision for me. And I've just kind of lent back into this because it's what was familiar, and it was just easier than moving forward. But I also needed to come to that decision myself. Like, I couldn't do it for anybody else but me. And when I was ready to fully accept that, and accept that, right, are we going to make this decision and stick by it, then yeah. But the retreats are they're breathtaking. They're so much fun. It's like all vibes accepted. Like, we have moments where we're all chill and we're just like enjoying like the peace and love. And then we have times where we're all like energetic and ecstatic, and like we're running around and just like saying weird, silly stuff, and having medieval times, and playing pool and doing karaoke. And I think the karaoke is like it's one of my favorite things. Yeah, just watching everyone come out and like really going for it, not caring about like how they sound. Like no one else is like caring about how they sound. We're all just excited that you're up there doing it, and it's just like we don't care. Like there is no expectation of, there's no comparison of like, oh, like this is better, this is worse, or there's just none of that. It's like we're all just accepting it for as it is, and yeah.
Thank you, Maddie. That's awesome. I look forward to seeing you at the next retreat that you can make it to, because it's always nice to come back together, especially after we haven't seen somebody in a little while. And Jay, I know you didn't get to pitch in, but you will soon, because you are coming to a retreat in the very near future too. Retreats actually, so we are going to get to hang out a lot over the next 6 months or so. So I'm very, very excited about that. I do want to remind everybody, if you would like to join us in Vancouver from October 5th to October 9th, do go to dualisticunity.com/Vancouver and just fill in your information. Let us know you're interested, and then we'll let you know if that event is happening. Otherwise, definitely check out the Netherlands retreat. You can find the information on our website. There are still tickets left. There are only a few tickets left for the third floor shared accommodations. Those are the least expensive tickets. Do keep in mind that all of your tickets do cover all of your food, all of your substances, the entertainment, the group yoga, stuff like that. And there are semi-private rooms still available, which means that there are 2 single beds in each of those rooms. Each room has its own bathroom and its own shower. So that's just wonderful, in my opinion. I don't know if anybody has ever tried to cram a dozen or so people into sharing one bathroom, but it's ugly. It's a nightmare, and nobody wants to go through that. And so we're not. We're going to be enjoying the hell out of our time. We're all going to have our privacy if we need it. We'll have our space to just sit and process whatever it is that we're processing, or we can all get together and have a great fucking time. So if you can make it, definitely do. If you have any questions, reach out to us. You can reach us, of course, on Patreon. Social media is a little bit more difficult, or better yet, go to our community Discord, and you can connect with us there. There's actually a retreat plans channel that you can go to and ask your questions, and sometimes you'll find answers there, or you'll find answers from other community members who are already going.
And if you don't want to reach out to us on any of those spots, you can just join our free group chat that we do every Wednesday, that we happen to be doing tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time. You can sign up on dualisticunity.com under, I believe, the events section, or in my bio if you're on social media right now, TikTok, Instagram. It's super easy to access, totally free. Just got to throw your email in there, because there are limited number of spots. So we are nothing if not available. And if you have any questions, you can reach us directly almost any day, because we're on group chats, we're doing live streams, we're doing all those things, and are always available. So if you have any questions, we haven't gotten back to you. If you sent us a DM or something on Instagram and you're like, I sent that to you 2 years ago and you still haven't responded, I apologize, but there is a way to access us directly at any point, at any time. So hop in a group. We do them every Wednesday. We do the Patreon ones 5 days a week. So definitely hop in there if you got any questions about the retreat specifically, or anything in general. You can ask us directly.
Now, I'm glad you brought this up in closing, because I think it's really important. And it's something that somebody had mentioned on our episode of Dualistic Unity social earlier when we were on Instagram. Like, you guys are spreading such great wisdom. I think they said Dharma. And how do you reconcile charging for it? And I just wanted to ask, like, anybody charge you to be here? I think you're forgetting how Instagram works, or at least maybe you're confused as to how Instagram works. It's free. It's free. That said, we really do try and do as much as we can for free, as often as possible. We try to be here for groups. We try to be here for live streams and everything else. And if you can ask a question in those, we try to answer as best we can. Sometimes, though, I do receive messages from people who are, frankly, explaining something that's really quite complex, and then asking for a response via social media. And as much as I would love to be able to do that, and indeed I was able to do that when we first started the podcast, the fact is that we're so busy right now. Like, just the amount of hours that we put into being accessible and available to our community takes up a lot. I'm a dad, and we've got to run this business, and there's a lot that we're doing in terms of expansion and whatnot. So I just wanted to say that if you're looking to get a complex answer to your complex problem. I'm not going to be available to do that just over a DM on Instagram, and neither is Andrew more often than not. If it's a comment like, "Hey, great job, thanks so much," or where do I find the details about this event? We can do that. That's no problem. But if you're contacting me asking about your abusive relationship or your loss of custody over your child or an addiction that you're going through, I can't express this enough. I can't offer you anything over direct message on Instagram or TikTok. There's very little that I can do that's not going to take a lot of time and still be limited in the form of the response itself. So if you are interested in talking to me, you can do so. You can book a one-on-one appointment through our website, dualisticunity.com. I don't have a great deal of availability, but what I'm saying is that for the complexity of your question, give it the time that it requires to get the answer that you're looking for, or at least to be able to go through it together. Okay, you can't just expect an answer that's going to give you something to run with when there is so much nuance, there is so much gray area, and there's so much room for misinterpretation. So I wish I could be there for you as easily as that. Unfortunately, I can't be, but we are here all the time. Join a group, jump on a live stream, leave a comment with your question. We definitely can do what we can so that way you don't have to pay, but I'm just saying that that's all we can do. So I'm not going to apologize, but it does kind of suck. I wish I had all the infinite time in the world.
We have about 2 minutes left. Jay, I believe you had your hand raised. Do you want to wrap us up?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was just going to chime in on the retreats anyways and just say how excited I am to come, especially to the 9-day retreat. I had already purchased the Virginia retreat previously, as well as the Vermont one. And I just couldn't miss it. There's just going to be so many of us there just letting go and without, judgment, and not trying to get anything or anything from it necessarily, just being an experience and picking up what we can, I guess. And I don't know what to expect, but I'm really excited. I'm really excited to meet you all in person, give you a big hug. Cannot wait. That's all.
Yeah, likewise. I'm excited. It's so nice when we all get together. And it's funny because by like the second day, we all start to recognize that we all know each other. Not in our stories or anything else, but just in our shared experience of being alive, of existing and being uncertain, peeling back the layers and recognizing that what remains is us in this together. So it's a fantastic experience. This is the end of today's roundtable. Fuck, I love these. If you would like to join us for the next roundtable, it will be happening in 2 weeks' time. You can do so. Oh, yes, it will be happening in 2 weeks' time. I will be back by then after the Vermont retreat. So join us on Patreon, patreon.com/dualistic unity. You can be a tier 2 patron or up. There is a 7-day free trial if you're not sure if you'd like to be a patron or not. Jump on there. I promise you'll love it.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.